I have a question. If you would clarify what you mean by high culture.
Oh. It's almost tautological. I'd say high culture is a culture with one or more well-developed script systems.
Thank you.
We nowadays can write almost all. But we can do this thanks to a rather elementary, binary, elegant script system applicable to many fields or domains of knowledge and perception. In the case of the Greeks, which I tried to address this morning, would be another case where sounds and numbers and musical pitches could be articulated by one and the same alphabetic signs, and this could be a working definition or instantiation of a high culture. I'm not good in definitions. But you see how it comes together, how it works in another. Okay. Just before I come to these near Oriental alphabet, Semitic ones, Aramaic ones, let me give the one example where I would say this is not a high cultural event, but the contrary. The Egyptians and the Babylonians, by the way, had very complicated but rather precise fractional expressions for the wonderful number of pi or pi, the relation between the diameter and the circumference of a perfect circle. But when King Solomon built his temple, following the Old Testament, he engaged an architect from Tyrus, from Phoenicia, and ordered a spherical building, a spherical temple, and gave this here the measurement diameter 10, I think 10 elbows, and circumference 13. And this is, in my eyes, a brilliant example of low culture. Because it's not only very wrong, but misleading to replace a transcendental number by a natural number without even discussing the problem. But now to the other way around, to the everlasting glory of the Semitic consonantic alphabets. Let's start with them. The first question I posed myself, without being able to answer it conclusively, why are scripts so important to nomadic cultures? The answer could be, tentative answer could be, nomadic cultures don't like to transport heavy statues and other stony representations of the gods. They, in the case of the Jews, in the case of the Arabs, in the case of the Mongols, they prefer light books in their material likeness. The probable origin via from Egypt via Sinai to Palestine, I'll try to tell you. The fundamental linguistic relation between the Egyptian hieroglyphs on the one hand and the Phoenician and Jewish and Arabic consonant alphabets on the other hand lie in the fact that almost every concept, be it verbal, be it nominal, is made up by three consonants, as in these three consonantic signs in the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system. Three consonants are written down one after the other, and these are the bones of writing and the flesh of writing, that is the three vowels A, I, and U. Also to say poetic actual inspirations coming to the bone, or embellishing the bone, actualizing the bone, poetizing the bone. In any case, it's in difference to our vocalic alphabet, it's always an act of solving a riddle, of deciphering in a sense. A bony, cool, consonantic texture you have to fill up with your own voice, your vocalic, living voice. And nevertheless, this Semitic consonantic alphabet seems to have become the origin or the inspiration of most writing systems which still are around in the world, be it Coptic in Ethiopia, be it Sanskrit, Devanagari, and many others. And what is the decisive point? Everybody knows it. You can tell it to yourself or to me. The number of signs for the first time is strictly limited, is finite. The alphabet gets, mathematically speaking, kind of cardinality. So and so many, or so few letters, consonants, form this alphabet, and in fact, it's just 22 in the case of the classical Hebrew, for instance. And always these same letters repeat and repeat, always crashing in the same old car, always writing in the same old mold. So it becomes mechanical and therefore probably transportable to other cultures, other languages, other religions, if I may say so. Strangely enough, yet the first occurrence of an alphabet in our sense, has not the graphical forms of the later Semitic letters, consonants, but it's written in cuneiform signs in the northern Syrian city of Ras es Shamona, formerly Ugarit. Think of all the dying people right now in these regions of the world. And for the very first time in Ugarit, about 1300 before, you have a tablet filled with, and only with, 30 signs standing for the sequence of Aleph, Beta, Gamma, Dalet, and so on. So for the first time, you have not only the cardinal value of the alphabetic signs, but also, to say with Georg Cantor, the ordinal. Aleph is the first, and from Ugarit up to now, this is somehow of an exploit. No? And Bet, our Bet, is a second, and so on. And I don't believe that every one of these later Hebrew and Semitic signs has an iconic meaning, at least to my knowledge. This functions for Aleph, the ox, and Bet, the house, as in Bethlehem, but not for Gamel, for instance, because Gamel can't be derived from camel. There were no camel in the ancient Near East. No chance. That is the whole functionality of the new consonantic alphabet can be written down in cuneiform signs or in the new Semitic alphabetic signs derived probably from the hieroglyphs, as I told you. Shows very clearly that you shouldn't be fascinated too much about this optical, graphical, iconical aspect of the signs of the writing systems. Their functionality is mightier than their optical appearance. And the historical riddle or wonder how it came that that an order was introduced into the signs, which every child since then has to learn by rote. It's our job. When we become 5 or 6, we have to learn it, as in Ugarit. I've tried often to explain it to myself with no bigger way. I've just one trace, one clue, as they would say in detective stories. I know from you see all these Ugarit excavations in the Paris Louvre, and what you don't see, obviously intentionally don't see, is the fact that among all these alphabetic inscriptions and abecedaria, there have been found 200 tablets in the Minoan linear way, the writing system which was contemporary on the island of Crete, and in heavy commercial relation to this harbor town of Ugarit. And I think that it was the first, and this Minoan B, this syllabary Minoan linear B, I have to address again, is certainly the first perfect vocalic syllabary of European and de facto Indo-European language. This is now my profession, my call for the next minute, to make it so clear as possible to you that we can take as difference between the Semitic and the Indo-European alphabet. I don't want to become polemic, but in the case of my Balban friend Jacques, sometimes I'm tempted to become polemic, because only historical knowledge and facts count and not speculations about phonologocentrism. Okay, before we go to the case of Greece, what are these trigrams and the one tetragrammaton as constitutive of Semitic languages and scripts? You have, for instance, the three consonants K, T, B, and you can vocalize them in many, many ways. And from K, T, B, you can get the book Kati. He wrote, she read. It's an incredible fan, so to say, fan, like a peasant's fan, of possible significations, meanings, all having to do with writing and reading. You could take another trigram, T, L, B, and you got student, Tali. And you put it into the plural, and you got Taliban. And you have the exceptional case of not only three, but four consonants, and you got Aleph. Can you tell it? It's a tetragrammaton. Sag's mal.
Jud, Hey, Vav, He, also G, H, W, H.
This is the name of God, as you know. The name we never should pronounce, only the high priest once in a year was allowed in the Jerusalem temple to pronounce this holy word made up of four consonants. I add just one simple idea of my Freiburg teacher Johannes Lohmann, that it's obviously more difficult to contain all the possible meaning of KTB, writing, reading, library, book, and so on, into one concept in the sense that we Europeans conceive the concept permit me this only obvious paradox. I think every culture has its own concept of the concept, and this Semitic concept of the concept is somehow transcendent. If we in the old Greek language have an horse, okay, we can decline it. The horse, it was genitive, genitile, hipoi, hippo, hippon, hippo, genitile. And hip remains as a consonantic and vocalic root. It remains constant, just as a KTB remains constant in these tetragrammatological formations. Only hip is much more unambiguous or much more simple, much more down to earth, so to say. It's just a horse and nothing else. And this makes it for Europe easier to develop sciences than religions. I come to a rather incredible story. The rediscovery of the oldest Greek syllabary, as I just introduced it under the name of linear B. Thanks to its deciphering, the Greek language, which is still spoken in Athens and elsewhere, has proven now to be the oldest known language in the world. Our knowledge starts about 1,600 before and goes to just up to date. And there's no break so to say, in this story, whereas old Egyptian or Sumerian or Akkadian or lost, and the last Aramaic villages in Syria are under heavy fire. These names, linear A and linear B, both go back to the other events who since 1899 excavated the famous labyrinth at Knossos and the harbor of Amnisos and other places. And he found two related but not identical symbol systems, A and B, neither of which he tried to decipher or to understand. The only thing which could be told from scratch was that all these clay tablets were not intended to stay. They were all burned down and burned out, and burned so that they could survive the times. But the fact that they had been burned was a military contingency, unfriendly fire. We are quite sure that the linear A was a culture dominated by a language not Indo-European, that and that is to say it hasn't been deciphered up to now, no way almost. Whereas linear B seems to be the syllabary of the conquerors of the culture of linear A, and in 1942, a brilliant young English architect, somehow involved in World War II, John Francis, did a marvelous thing after some American preparations. He could show that linear B was a syllabary whose underlying language was a very archaic, the earliest archaic form of Greek. And this brought, as I said, our historical knowledge of Greek back about 800 years, from Homer's time, 800, to the destruction and eroberung and conquest of Knossos. Before I come back to the cool and sad details of writing systems, let me just remind the dolphins and the flowers and the dancing young men and the topless young priestesses on the fresco walls of Knossos and otherwhere. Our last tablets in linear B are datable around 1200 before, and this is probably the most important date in the ancient history of Europe and Near Asia. About the same time as Knossos burned and was burned and came down, the civilizations or cultures of Ugarit came down, of Mykene on the Greek mainland, Pylos on the same mainland, Troja on the near Asiatic coast, Hattusha I mentioned as the capital of the Hellenic kingdom, and the pharaonic system of Egypt barely survived. Say with so much. Yeah, Tanya?
Wasn't it 1952? 20 decided we said 42 and 30.
No. 50? Habe ich nicht gesagt. Sagen, ich sei völlig. This deciphering was a very brilliant exploit, and some ideas I should probably give you. Generally spoken, Membre had been part of the British war effort in the Second World War, and obviously had worked as a navigator for Bletchley Park, the British anti-German decipherment secret service center between Cambridge and Oxford. And from there it seems that he learned some professional tricks. Looking for proper names, in first instance, in this case not for the name of generals like Guderian or Rommel, but for well-known city names like Knossos, Amnisos, Phaistos and others, and trying to put visible symbols on the one hand together with possible such readings on the other hand. Second principle, making guesses about the type of language you have to decipher as script. And so Ventris looked for two-syllable sequences which we could translate as Petrus and Petra, for instance, or Peter and his female correspondent, which would be Petra. And then, in having found this opposition between a male and a female name with the same root, meditating about which kind of language can this possibly be. Have Semitic language this male-female difference? No, normally not. So, high probability formed in the Germanic language or in the European language. And finally, it was Greek. And still, while Ventris still deciphered, the American archaeologist Carl Blegen worked in Pylos on the Peloponnesos and found against all skepticism, the most brilliant correlation ever found. Die wir zum nächsten Teil. Ja, so ist gut. At the same time, when Ventris proposed for some sequence of syllables, we're reading Kiripodi, Freeport as in Delphi, for instance. Carl Blegen discovered a tablet where this sequence of symbols showed up, but with an iconographical representation showing something with 3 legs, or 3. So the reading was about all down, up. It couldn't be poor chance, as many people before had pretended. And you learn just one more thing from this transcription TV body. Surely the old Greeks didn't pronounce it like that, but they said tripodi, as we all say tri for try and three. But this vocalic syllable, this vocalic grid, I would almost say, was unable to write other syllables than open syllables. Open syllables are syllables formed by the absolute trivial rule, consonant first, vowel following. T, re, po, ti. No turning around, no tree, po, ti, or no chance to begin with the vowel and start with and end with the consonant, as it would be suitable for the local name of Amnisos, but no way. This sounds, by first hearing, this sounds very restrictive, and it is very restrictive. It makes it impossible to write hexameters. This is the point. Hexameters are defined by the alternation of open and closed syllables. And if you deform closed syllables like tree by expressing them as open ones, ti-ri, you destroy the prosodical metrical formula of the hexameter as such. Which has consequences for all what will follow in our course here. And for the Japanese among us, I hope there are, it's an amusing by remark that the Cretans were unable to distinguish between R and L, as the Japanese do, in transcribing European names, and so my name, for instance. This unsuitedness for poetry and prosodic purposes seems to be very natural. I don't think it is so, but I forget to mention and to stress how prosaic and how bureaucratic these inventories of many burnt clay tablets used to be. There are lists about 50 female slaves imported from the island of Lesbos to Pylos. There are lists about warriors and officers and imminent enemies and how to prepare for war. There are very agrarian notice on how many olives and honey has been delivered by the peasants to the powerful, or by the priests to the gods and the goddesses.
I think this one with the Diri body was also one like this, 5 tripods for the goddess so-and-so and 5 honey jars. And also a drawing of a jar with honey.
Yeah, my favorite tablet from Knossos. 1 amphora of honey for all gods. 1 other amphora of honey for the goddess of the labyrinth. That is to say, she equals or tantamount all the other gods. But to come back to this factical and empirical side of the inscriptions, which nevertheless has something to do with the Greek poetry. Only 2 years ago, in the region of Sparta, in Laconia, near Amuklight, has been made a very unusual find of tablets, not inside a burned or destroyed royal palatial building, but just on the field, as if people flying had thrown away their tablets and so. And what is inscribed on the tablets? That 500 daggers are in play, and when the diggers escaped further, the 500 daggers came into view, which wouldn't have been true for olives or honey and all this perishable stuff which is usually the content of the tablets. And in the good years when the European community still supported the Republic of Greece like as a baby in its cradle. In the good old days when the insolvency was on its way but not declared, in 1993, the European community decided to modernize the water system of one of the most sacred and holy acropolis ever thought of, the Cadmea of Theben, Sibai,
Tebe, but it's in Italian.
Thebes.
Tebe in Italian is Tebe.
Yeah, indeed.
But in Tebe, I think it's Tebe.
Yes,
Thebes.
Thebes in English.
Yes.
Yeah. We should have heard it in the course of
Yeah.
on the tragedy, all the tragedy.
Yeah.
Every second tragedy has taken place on the Cadmea, on the Acropolis of Thebes. And what came, and a very sensational object came into sight. A list of local names, Thebes, other small places in the surroundings on the near island, and these Ortsnamen, these local names,
Names of places.
these names of places were all known to us from the second song of Homer's Iliad. Unfortunately, in the famous catalogue of ships, the Greeks attacking, starting from the region of Thebes in order to go to Troja and fight. Okay, this is, at first sight, it seems no wonder, but if you take into account that except the local name of Thebes, or the 6 or 7 other local names, and registered on this little tablet and named by Homer, are totally unknown to the Greek anti-biographers, mythographers. Nobody has any idea where they are. And now they are proved as simple rural entities producing olives and money and not money, honey and we. So how could Homer know this? In our before we end in 15 minutes, I have to put my cards on the table. I start from 2 premises, convictions. The first one is common sense. The second one is highly controversial. The common sense is that we now, since small time, that we now can be sure that the adoption of the Semitic consonant alphabet by the Greek vocalic alphabet took place relatively precisely around 800 most probably on the island of Iberia. This is archaeologically rather assured. And the second most controversial hypothesis would be the hypothesis of my friend Barry Powell, University of Wisconsin. This alphabet was adapted for the sake and for the love for Homer. And if this would be so, it could be very decisive. What I try to suggest about Oriental despoties and the Minoan Mycenaean bureaucracy was not too far away from this. Homer's poetic new creation of a culture would be the free aspect of high culture. Herodotus, the inventor or the first historian, says that in the case of Greeks, it has been poets and not priests who have given their gods the names and the functions and the attributes. So from the gift of the gods and from the gift of the alphabet, there follows nothing more than to honor the gods and read and love the poet, the hexameters and the poetry. You haven't to go to kneel down in the direction of Mecca and so on and so on. But time goes by and I have to become rather down to earth once again. As far as we can, first statement, as far as we can tell, this invention has been done on a worldwide scale just once. There's no parallel story of an vocalic alphabet. So many syllables have been developed in the East and West. So many not phonetic systems. But the introduction of 5 vowels and later 7 vowels into the consonant, the ordered consonant list named alphabet was unique. And the extension of from 5 to 7 had clear prosthetic reasons. The Greeks wanted to distinguish between the short O and the long O, and the short E and the long E, because, as I said, the longness or shortness of syllables and vowels made up the very web of their poetics. And here I may add the point I forget to make while talking about the island of Crete and the Mycenaean culture. Das muss ich machen. Sie wissen ja nicht, ich will malen. Now you can. Das können wir mal einfach Friedrich Adolf. almost. No? This is a logical duet, two-dimensional duet, lying behind the Minoan and linear B system. I swear to the God and the goddesses that these 5 symbols A, E, I, O, and U exist as such for the first time in writing history, as far as I can tell. And then, after having been isolated as pure vowels, they can be combined by rather mechanical rules to opening consonants, building the closed list of open syllables writable in linear B. And that the adapter of the non-vocalic consonant alphabet coming somewhere from Ugarit or not from Jerusalem in any case, introduced this conscious or unconscious knowledge of single consonant, single vowels as possible scriptural values into this already counted and finalized sign system, made it, or so to say, the philosophy, the arrival of a new day. This total alphabetical analysis up to the very single sound is surely less natural or less common than syllabaries, but maybe it has been necessitated by the Indo-European root system, at least in the old Homeric times. I led to formula almost indispensable if you produce epic poetry. In Homeric Greece is EAO. If you would write this word in consonant alphabets, nothing would be left. No single trace of it. As a rule of thumb, you can retain the Semitic language system is based on consonants, and that's its glory. And the old European, Indo-European language system, it's based on vowels, and this is its glory. And before I go into the systematic aspects of this difference, let's make it audible on the poetic aspect. As every good scholar of the Odyssey knows, the first line of the two sirens in the 12th book of the Odyssey is certainly the most wonderful hexameter ever produced. How? It's obviously enough. Two young ladies, nymphs, whose job is just to sing in order to sing, la polar. They produce the most wonderful line, and that's why I know it by rote exceptionally. And I have to quote it. before translating. Toiarion poluain oduseu megakudos akaio. Now imagine this written down in a consonantic alphabet. Toiarion poluain oduseu megakudos akaio. Hi. Come to us. Toiarion. Poluain oduseu. Ulysses, full of riddles, Poluain. Megakudos akaion. Big.
I think you're looking for great. Great, this has the greatest of the,
Great.
in the sense of famous and
It's just more than famous. That's why I hesitate and doubt. Odysseus as a great brilliance among the Achaeans, among the Greeks. But kudos is not just is more than clavers, is more than fame. Kudos is an attribute of the gods, and fame is an attribute of the heroes. And as we have very little chance to become gods, but some chance to become heroes and stay Doriatic, let's stay at this point. Have you got the argument? It's the most important one.
I think so.
I think what you could also illustrate is the importance of the short and the long O. Like the importance of the division between short and long O, for example. When we have poetry that rhymes, we put emphasis not on short and long syllables. We decide like Mary had a little lamb. There is no division between short and long vowels. Whereas in ancient Greek, the hexameters were formed by short and long syllables. That's the big difference to how we make poetry nowadays. And it's only possible when you have this distinction between.
This is what I try to imitate in my bad Saxon Greek. Doi, agio, Poluain, Odusei, Megaku, Dosakaito. I think so you get a little feeling for the beat of the Greek poetry, and which was music at the same time.
And song.
And song, yeah. Okay, I think we have to pause and to see again half an hour too early, the difference in contrast to the others. And we work and work until we are deep in incorporation.